Happy Camper Radio, episode 63. Come on, let's go camping. We are back in our normal surroundings once again here at the Happy Camper Radio Show. And I've got to admit, Daniel, we did have a good time last week, didn't we?
Yeah, we stayed up all night. Your butt went to bed.
Wait a minute, Daniel. You know how old I am in person to you?
Wait a minute. Your brother and your brother-in-law aren't that much younger
Daniel,
than you.
There comes a time when you've just got to say, hey, all right, this is what camping is all about. It's time to relax, time to take it easy. And there will be times when it is time to lay your head on the pillow.
I can't believe how long me and Deidre stayed out there. We stayed out there till after the later show.
I cannot believe we offered you a plate of food when you first got there and you turned it down.
Well, I wasn't hungry then. I didn't realize we were going to be there for like 5 hours.
Daniel, what our listeners don't understand, they don't see you as often as I do behind the microphone. And I have seen you come over here and I've seen you clean a plate and then some.
Well, I mean, I'm trying to cut down on that, but,
Okay.
When I see food, I hate to waste it. But I couldn't believe how late.
We had
that
plenty
was a lot
of food.
Fun.
There was no idea. And Daniel, we made so much spaghetti that night. Oh.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to say this, but we had to toss some of it out.
Did you?
Yes, because we made more than we really thought we were going to need.
You missed the ghost stories we were telling when you went to bed. Those were interesting. That was right before we left. Yeah.
Oh, my heavens.
We're going to have to get them back on to tell some of those because they were pretty freaky.
Absolutely. And something, we'll make that happen through Google Hangouts.
There you go.
We'll
That's
get
a good
both of them
idea.
back on the show. And, and we'll get some of our longtime listeners to join in on the conversation as well.
Okay.
And that's something we've got to work at, too. All right. But anyway, it's good to be back here in our main studio. Let's go ahead and get our campfire lit, Daniel. I am a week behind sitting behind a fire. All right, I'm just out of place. I'm like a fish out of water.
There you go.
You
can't even breathe. You can't even breathe.
But anyway, hey, it's good to have you back, our listeners. Our phone number here is 404-537-CAMP. You can like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter at Camp Talker, and add us to your circles on Google+. Of course, you can access any one of our social media sites very simply by going to our homepage, which is www.happycamperradio.com, and you can click on the RSS feed button while you're there. Make sure you take some time to browse around the website and take a look and see anything new that we have to offer. But you definitely want to subscribe to the show so you never miss a single episode. Daniel, we have a lot of followers this past week.
Yep.
Wow, we've got a lot of folks that just reached out to us, and we're going to go right down that list now because they are all over the map. First of all, we want to say hello to the folks over at OutdoorRevolution.com over in the UK, to Eric Foster Whidden of Moultrie, Georgia, not too far away from home, to Diane Redfin of Toronto, Ontario, Canada, the fine folks over at the Doubletree Hotel by Hilton in Bratislava, Slovakia. Let's say hello to Carl Calhoun, to Wagner Holiday Park in New Zealand, and Daniel, our friends at Coleman reached out to us. This is the fine manufacturers of camping equipment.
My pop-up, actually.
Oh, why, your pop-up?
Yeah, and my parents have a Coleman,
too.
Hey,
look at all my gear that I have spread around me. You see the name Coleman spread all over the place. But anyway, we are so delighted to have each and every one of you here on the show this week and welcome you aboard to the Happy Camper Radio family. Daniel, we've been talking just before we went online here this morning, or should I say this evening? Wow, it's morning for me because I've got to go to work tonight.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
But we've been talking about our friend Gary on the Appalachian Trail, and this guy is growing legs, I'm telling you.
Yeah, he's walking pretty far in a day. Or hiking.
I don't know where he's getting his energy from, but Daniel, just a few days ago, he posted online, his latest in his journal. He crossed over into Damascus, Virginia.
Yep.
And this is the 467-mile mark for him.
That's not even halfway. It seems like if you're in Virginia, you'd be like halfway because if you look at the map. But I guess you have to go like from the west side of Virginia, kind of, further east and then up because like I guess Georgia's probably a day or two, but like
considering the mountains that he is crossing,
yeah.
I mean, we're going up and down and up and down. Wow.
Yeah.
You know, and I can see why it's the whole length of the Appalachian Trails. How many miles?
I think it's like 2,100 or something.
That's a long way. That's a long,
something like that.
Long hike. But you know, Gary's going to make it. I've got all the faith in the world in him, and he has a lot of followers.
Yeah,
I am really anxious about getting him on the program here.
Yeah,
whenever he gets the opportunity to, get into a cell range where he can, call the show and we can, carry on a conversation. Because I've got a ton of questions for him. I'd like to hear about all the wildlife that he's come across while on the trail.
Yeah, he's taking a couple pictures of deer and everything.
Hey,
but
speaking of pictures, have you seen the photographs that he's added recently?
Yeah, I try not to because I get so jealous when I see those things.
Well, Daniel, you only live once. If I could go back about 30 years ago, I probably would have taken the venture that he is on right now. Yeah. But, I mean, for me, it's going to be virtually impossible. Just I can't make it happen. I'm sorry to say.
Evidently, one day he hiked 30 miles in a day, and that's like a marathon almost. I mean, that's over a marathon. That's like over a marathon. And like he's evidently there's a saying on the trail. It's called trail legs, where you do like at least 20 plus miles a day. And he says he's gotten his trail legs now, and he's doing 20 miles a day easily. And that's like almost a marathon every day.
Bottom line is I couldn't keep up. Not if I tried. Wow.
That is pretty intense.
Well, anyway, Daniel, today we're going to be talking about camping with cash, credit, and debit.
Uh-huh.
A lot of folks go camping, and, everybody's spending habits are different.
Uh-huh.
Some people carry a wad of cash, and that's how they live their life. They don't believe in the plastic one way or the other. On the other hand, some people, carry the plastic debit card, which is linked to either a checking account or a savings account. And some people have a credit card, which they go ahead and, pay everything on the credit card, and then hopefully at the end of the month they have enough money to pay the entire bill off.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good way to spend. It's a good way to budget if you can. But, we're going to talk about this today because I think it's very important that we look at this, and I'll tell you why. Because watching your money and spending on a camping trip is very important. It's very easy for anybody to go overboard, especially if you've got young kids. Young kids love to reach into mom and dad's wallet any opportunity they can.
Yep.
I can remember my kids, and I'm sure I was the same way when I was younger. You see something, you point your finger, you want it, you've got to have it.
Yep, that's true.
And if you're anybody like me as far as a parent goes, and I raised all girls, wow, they have a way of wrapping dad right around their little finger. and they get them every time.
They do. I think they still do.
They're trained.
And
they're
they
trained
are.
very well. Yes, and they look up at you with them sad eyes like, Dad. I really, really would love this.
Yeah.
So, but it's all about having fun, Daniel.
Mm-hmm.
When you go out on a camping trip, especially if you go away from home. Now, granted, we were just a few miles away.
Right.
To my brother-in-law who came to join us, that was more than just a couple miles away. So they had a lot to see. They had a lot to do. I've been over at the park many, many times, and I've had an opportunity to see a number of different things. We had an opportunity to post some pictures on Facebook, too.
Oh, really? Cool.
Yeah. So, just to give you an idea that, there's a lot of things you can do just about anywhere you go in the world of camping. But, one of the things you've got to realize, the longer you stay away from home, the more expensive your trip is going to become. Mm-hmm. That's a given right there. It's going to become more expensive the longer you vacation, the more activities you engage in, and of course, like we said, when it comes to the kids, the more souvenirs you buy. It's really going to reach into your pocket.
I'm thinking about the longer vacations. Some places will have a deal if you stay like a certain number of days, you get like a discount or something. I knew there was like a deal with a Disney World when we went down there. It's like a 5-day pass would be cheaper than buying a one-day pass every single day. They have discounts and stuff.
I don't think there's any of us that would like to stay longer than we possibly could. You've got to go back to work. The money is running a little bit low, but if you really could, you'd love to stay a whole lot longer. Nobody likes packing up their gear.
Well, some retirees, they get in those big old Winnebagos and they just go around the country and they never go home.
And there were some awesome looking motor homes over there at the park. I didn't have an opportunity to drive through the park and take a look at some of them. But wow. Yeah, some people do live their life on the road. Now, Daniel, let's talk a little bit about cash versus credit and debit, okay? Mm-hmm. Camping with cash. Not very many people pocket cash these days.
Nope.
It used to be that, cash was king.
Uh-huh.
But, a lot of people have set that aside, for the purpose of going with the plastic. Now, with cash, you've really got to be watching your spending very carefully. Not everybody believes in using debit cards and credit cards.
Right.
All right. Some people are strictly cash and carry, and that's just the way it is. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Mm-hmm.
All right. But, when you've got that cash in your hand and you've got to rely upon that amount of money that you have to get you through the trip, then you definitely have got to be very careful with your spending. You've got to budget very carefully.
It goes by quick.
Mm-hmm. Cash offers no security or peace of mind. That's the only downside about it, Daniel.
Yeah.
If you stand the possibility of losing the money that you have in your pocket, it's gone.
Yeah.
It's not going to come back.
Yeah.
You can call, you can file a police report, but that's not going to make your money walk back into your pocket. All right. It cannot be replaced if it's lost or stolen.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Here's the thing with cash. The way I look at it, Daniel, if I set aside my plastic and I said I'm only going to carry cash on this camping trip, which is about 300 miles away from home, hypothetically speaking, all right, it's going to cause me to worry constantly. All right.
Yeah, you gotta really think about what you're going to spend your money on, and you got to really do some research, and you really got to plan it out to everything
Absolutely.
to the dot.
And when you store your cash away, you've got to make sure that you're going to store it in a safe and secure place. You're not always going to be at your campsite. All right, so you don't want to leave your cash behind where somebody can go through your stuff. I'm not saying that happens at a campground.
Mm-hmm.
The most honest people in the world I've come across, Daniel, was at a campground.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I could walk away and leave my things just as they are, be gone the entire day. And aside from the squirrels and the chipmunks, tearing into your stuff, everything's going to be just as you left it.
Exactly. Totally.
Speaking of which, I've got a new cooler I've got to replace.
Oh no.
Yes. A squirrel came in and he tried, like you wouldn't believe, to get inside the cooler, but he could not.
Oh my
But he
gosh.
sure chewed away at the plastic.
Ugh.
I just
That
wonder maybe
stinks.
if it just wasn't sealed right, but he smelled something.
Oh boy.
So yes, I'm going to be going cooler shopping, but that's if that's the only security I've got to worry about on a camping trip, Daniel, I'm not going to worry too much about it at all.
Yeah.
All right. Debit cards. Let's talk about those. Now, one of the things that folks don't often realize is debit cards are not credit cards. They are not credit cards. Just because it may have the fancy little Visa or MasterCard logo on that card, if it says debit, that doesn't mean you can go on a spending spree and use money, that somebody is loaning to you. Okay, that money is withdrawn directly from either your checking account or your savings account. So if you know that you have a certain amount of money in either one of those accounts, and that debit card is linked to that account, if you run out of money, your transactions may be denied.
Oh yeah.
If you continue to try to spend.
Mm-hmm.
And if you go out for a bite to eat, and and you find out, I've overdrawn my account and the bank is denying it. Well, you may be washing dishes for the rest of the day to pay the bill.
Do they do that? I've never seen that.
I've never seen it, I never heard of it, but I don't want to run into one of those situations where I've got to go ahead and put on the plastic apron and get that back there behind the sink and sweat all day long while the family goes out and has fun.
Right.
So, you've got to be very careful about that. So it's always good to, make sure that you have the amount of money that you plan on spending in your account if you're going to be, using a debit card. Right. It can be difficult to replace while on vacation, too, in some cases, Daniel.
Oh, yeah.
It depends on your bank and the reputation of the bank and, of course, your financial dealings with the institution. Now, some financial institutions, like I say, offer little or no protection. Mm-hmm. Right? You want to avoid using those store-bought debit cards, too, Daniel. Stay away from those. I'm talking about the ones you buy in the drugstore.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, I know that you load up.
Yeah.
Well, another thing about the little no protection on your debit cards, they might let you spend more than you have, but it comes back to bite you hard.
Oh, of course
They'll
it does.
come back and give you $30 surcharges on everything overdrawn that you put on every dollar, and I mean that's how some banks make money, and it can be pretty scary sometimes.
It sure can, and Daniel, those type of charges can add up. They really can, and who really wants to come back from a vacation, and continue paying on that trip 3 or 4 months down the road?
Exactly.
You don't want to do that, no. Okay, so but those store-bought debit cards, Daniel, and I don't want to go into the individual different brands, but those are the cards that you find on the store rack. You take them and you load them up with money, and those cards right there. I've heard some horror stories from people that have used those cards and have run into problems even when they had money on the card. But something went haywire, something was not getting paid, something was not being honored, and the customer service problems that they were having is just, that's an animal I just want to stay away from. Another thing you want to avoid doing, too, is stay away from gas purchases with credit cards or with debit cards. Right?
Yeah.
That's never a good idea, because here's the thing, a lot of people don't realize this. When you slide your debit card into one of those machines at the gas pump, because everything is computerized nowadays. You've got the little windows when you ever pull up to the gas pumps and you see they've got a television set there.
Yeah,
and they've got the commercials, for the store that they're wow, so they got everything. But the problem is if you use a debit card, and oftentimes there will be a sign on the pump that says, if you're using a debit card, please come inside to do your transaction, and don't do your transaction at the pump. Because what will happen in some cases, holds will be placed on available funds that you have in your account. And you may pump maybe $30, $40 worth of gas, and that's not a whole lot by today's standard.
Right.
All right. But, you may come to find out that still there are holds being placed on funds that exceed that.
Oh yeah.
And you don't want to have your money tied up in any way, shape, or form while you are away. So debit cards, please understand, they're not credit cards. They don't work the same. Now, credit cards, on the other hand, they offer the best financial protection there is. I have no problem saying that I use credit cards when I go on a camping trip. And I have no problem doing that, and I have no problem budgeting very carefully. But I have disciplined myself to use credit cards. People can run into trouble if they don't discipline themselves.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's some people, and I hate to say this, look at that as free money. All right, and I'll go ahead and use it now. I'll pay for it now, and I'll figure out later on how I'm going to pay it off.
Yeah.
But what you got to understand too, depending upon the bank, depending upon the credit card, and the financial institutions, some of those interest rates on those credit cards are very steep.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And they, and if you pay your credit card off on time, if make more than the minimum amount of payment, chances are you're going to be able to maintain a very good interest rate with your bank.
Yeah.
But there are some, financial institutions, wow, you're talking like 18 to 23% interest.
Yeah.
You talk about bouncing a check.
Yeah.
And having to pay those fees. Wow. I mean, this can add up, and a lot of people don't realize that. The thing about credit cards, too, is they're offered at millions of locations all over the world. If they're lost or stolen, you can pick up the phone right away and make a phone call and, hopefully get a new card sent to you overnight mail.
Yeah. It's also good if you're overseas. Me and Deidre were over in Paris a few years ago. And over there, you might have a debit card, but you might not know, what the exchange rate is at that time. So basically, we just did everything with a credit card and, a little bit of cash because it's it's just easier. You can just figure out, how much you really spent when you got home. You figure out the pounds or the euros to dollar ratio when you get back home. But I think the best thing to do is just try to do all three, really. I mean, sometimes you want to use your debit card so you don't want to max out your credit card, and sometimes places will only take cashes. Like, I know when me and Deidre go camping, we'll go to like flea markets and stuff, and you go to flea markets and like garage sales and stuff like that they usually have on Saturdays, and you might be camping in the area. They're only taking cash, so it's always a good idea to have a little bit of all of them.
Sure. And there's nothing wrong with that at all. And this is something, too, Daniel, that I want to point out, and I think I'm as guilty as anybody else is on this here. You always go on a camping trip or go on vacation somewhere with the assumption that your credit card will not become lost or stolen. But in the likelihood that it does happen, would you be prepared to call your bank with the information they needed to stop payment on that card or to cancel the card immediately?
Yeah, I would.
You got to keep in mind that, a lot of us carry, our livelihood in our wallets.
Yeah.
What would happen if, all of a sudden your wallet came up missing?
Yeah.
Do you have the number handy that's normally on the back of your card?
Well, I have my phone. I can just look it up.
Do you have your 16-digit credit card number written down somewhere that you can immediately provide the customer service rep at your bank so they can immediately, hit the kill button, so nobody else can spend that card, and also work to get you a replacement card too. Those things, that's something like that, you really need to keep in mind in the back of your head. Of course, like we've got a lot going on in our minds too when we're getting prepared for a camping trip. The excitement alone, right there, I mean, just takes your breath away. But it's always a good idea to have somewhere, that you can keep handy the information that you will need in the event you have to contact your credit card company, your bank, to immediately stop payment on the credit card or to cancel the credit card and have them issue you a new one. So it's always important to have those numbers written down somewhere and have them handy, just in the event that you do need them. Let's just hope that never does happen.
Yeah, really.
So the good thing about credit cards, if they are lost or stolen, you can quickly dispute unauthorized charges.
Yep.
All right. You don't have that luxury with debit cards. Maybe you do in some banks. I'm not sure. All right, but with credit cards, you can dispute those unauthorized charges, and again, they can be replaced quickly if lost or stolen.
Actually, me and Deidre had a problem with that. We think something happened with one of our credit cards. That someone tried to buy something online. They didn't put in the right expiration date, but and then someone tried to cash one of those checks. Sometimes you get a check from a credit card company, like in the mail, and someone tried to cash a check, but they stopped it, and so.
Hey, it's all about discipline.
Yeah.
You've got to carefully go through your statement line by line when it comes in the mail every month, just to make sure that yes, okay, I did make this purchase, and all of a sudden, if you start seeing some things in there that don't belong, that's when the red flags go up and you say, hey, wait a minute right here.
A lot of people don't look at those things. It's really important to look at those things.
And you got to be very careful, too. And Daniel, a long time ago, I stopped using standalone ATM machines.
Oh, really?
Yeah. In fact, I don't use ATM machines at all. I haven't had a need for them because, if I need a little extra money, say like if I go to the grocery store and I'm purchasing something with my debit card. Yeah. And, I haven't done this on the road. I don't know if you can do it on the road, but, you definitely can do it closer to home. But if I, check out at the grocery store and say my bill comes to maybe $70, $80 worth of groceries, if I need an extra $20 to put in my pocket, the machine will ask you, do you want any cash back? That's the place to have that done. Yeah. Okay, because you can get it done right there. You can put the cash in your pocket, and you don't have to worry about, being at an ATM machine. I don't care if it's a standalone machine somewhere or even an ATM machine at a bank, where, when you pull up at nighttime especially, you got to be very, very worried and very cautious of your surroundings to make sure, that everything is just perfect and things aren't out of line. I always tell people, and back in my law enforcement days, I've always said that, when you approach an ATM machine, if for some reason you do not feel comfortable, do not get out of your car.
Yeah.
Move on. Go somewhere else to get your money. It's just not worth taking the risk. Okay, I got some safety tips here. This is some things, just to keep in mind, when you're out there. When you're carrying cash, be sure to secure it out of sight and out of mind. Store it in a place where nobody would think of looking. Behind the spare tire in your car, for example. I wouldn't put it in the glove box or anything like that. But, in a place, just where somebody may not even think about looking. If you carry, a large amount of cash with you, spread that cash around to some of your family members. Because if you get a hole in your pocket or something like that, or maybe, the money just happens to fall out, you still have other cash, that's spread out among the family members, divide the cash up, like we say, and have an account and, your account and your bank phone numbers handy, but also keep them safe too. Because you don't want those account numbers, falling into somebody's hands that have no business, putting their hands on it in the first place. And most importantly, like we say, stick to a budget and watch your spending very, very carefully. You can't go wrong anytime you go camping if you budget carefully and carefully watch your spending. It's time now for our featured campground of the week here on the Happy Camper Radio Show. I found a place this week, Daniel, that got me very excited. It's not as close as the campground I went to last week.
Oh, okay.
But if I could ever venture out here, Daniel, just the pictures alone on their website got me real excited. It's the Glacier View Campground in Idaho, and it is our featured campground of the week here on the Happy Camper Radio Show. Now, the Glacier View Campground is located next to beautiful Redfish Lake beneath the Sawtooth Mountain Range, and it sits at an elevation of 6,500 feet. Check it out. It's on our website right now, www.happycamperradio.com. Over on the right-hand side of the screen, just click on the featured campground button. Glacier View is in the heart of the beautiful Sawtooth National Recreation Area where outdoor activities abound. The campground itself offers several family sites, many with views of the lake and the rugged Mount Hayburn. They have flush toilets and drinking water. They're provided. Roads and parking spurs throughout the site are paved. And like I say, Daniel, the pictures on there are just breathtaking itself, So, if you're looking for a great place to go camping, you can't beat this place, especially if you're an angler, okay? If you're an angler, if you enjoy fishing, check this place out. A lot of activities and amenities there: boating, campfire rings, drinking water, firewood, fishing, flush toilets, the paved roads, playground for the kids. They've got 2 playgrounds there, so if you've got some young campers in your party, they will definitely take advantage of that. Swimming, trails, trash collection, wildlife viewing. There you go, Daniel. Also, make sure you check out some of the things to know before you go. There's a list of them right there. Also, keep in mind, too, that electric hookups are not available at the site. And by all means, please don't move firewood. Purchase your firewood locally. It's our featured campground of the week. It's Glacier View Campground in Idaho. Make your reservations online at the recreation.gov website. You can't beat it. Glacier View Campground in Idaho. I'm going to check it out for sure. And as always, if you have a campground that you would like Daniel and I to feature on the program, all you've got to do is give us a call at 404-537-CAMP. Make sure you leave a voicemail message for Daniel and I, or you can very simply email me, Skip, S-K-I-P, at happycamperradio.com, or this guy sitting next to me,
Daniel at happycamperradio.com.
This guy would love to hear from you, probably more than I would.
Whatever.
Every time Daniel gets, an email from somebody, I'm always the first one to hear about it.
It's nice.
So definitely, get in touch with the both of us and make sure you include a link to the campground so we can feature it under the featured campground button anytime that we decide to feature a campground on our program. Well, Daniel, that's about going to wrap things up for this particular episode of the Happy Camper Radio Show. In a couple weeks from now, we are going to be engaged in the backyard campground, the Great American Backyard Campground.
And then I'm going to Utah.
So you've got a full schedule ahead of you.
I
and
do.
A lot on your plate. Wow.
That's gonna be interesting. I've never been out there. We might be
why
going.
don't you just bring your pop-up camper over and you have it already loaded up so the next day just pull out and go.
That's a long drive. If I was going to go tent camping, I'd probably just put a tent on the airplane, maybe.
Only you. Only you. And I would be standing out there with my binoculars looking up at you.
There you go.
Well, anyway, thanks a lot for joining us, folks. Don't forget, you catch us online anytime at www.happycamperradio.com. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter at Camp Talker, and add us to your circles on Google+. The Happy Camper Radio Show is a presentation of Skip Huber Productions. We'll catch you next week. This is Happy Camper Radio.